I'm Jo Barclay-Logie and we're going to look at a technique today called netting. It is beautiful on its own, but it's also a technique that once you've mastered it, you can really go to town embellishing it with crystals, fire polished seed beads, pearls, whatever takes your fancy really. I'm going to show you a few examples. So this is the technique that we're going to learn today, and it's netting, a basic net. You can see those diamond shapes that form there that are open. That's where you could embellish later on. I'm going to show you a necklace that I've made using the netting technique. So can you see how this collar is predominantly made up of those diamond shaped netting as well? And just to explain what I mean by embellishing, so here's a cuff. There you can see the netting on one side, and if I flip it over you can see how it's embellished on the other side, and I'm going to show you how to do that embellishing in the next tutorial, but for now we're going to learn how to do the netting part of it. Before we get started, I just want to show you a few examples. So the netting that I'm going to demonstrate for you today uses two different sizes of seed beads, and for the demo today I'm going to use size 11s and size 8s, which is exactly what this netting is made out of here. Only in this example I've used the same colour. So you can use the same colour beads, or you can use contrasting colours. In this piece I've used complementing, and here's the one completely contrasting, and I wanted to show you the different size here. So if you were going for something that was a bit more dainty and delicate, this piece is made using 11s and 15s, whereas these two are made using the 8s and the 11s. So here we go. As I said, I'm going to be using contrasting colours, and I'm going to be using 11Os and 8Os, but you could be using 15Os and 11Os. It's just easier to use a bigger bead with a smaller bead, because when you come to embellish your piece, you're going to be passing through that bigger bead more than you are through the smaller beads. And I've got a little stopper bead here as well. So I'm going to start with that. I've threaded on a comfortable length of fireline onto my needle. I tend to work with 2.5 to 3 meters. You can always add in thread if you get stuck. It's better to add in than get tangled up. So I'm threading on my stopper bead. I'm going to take it all the way down towards the end of my thread. Now, if you're going to be turning this into a bracelet, you will want to leave about a 20 centimetre tail at this end of your work before securing your stopper bead, because you can then use that tail to add on one end of your clasp. And to turn it into a stopper bead, you just pass your needle back through the bead and pull your thread through. Right, we're going to start doing our netting, and our netting is going to be made up of sets of beads, and it's going to be an odd set of beads. And our first set of beads is going to be 1 8 or one bigger bead and 2 11s or 2 smaller beads. That is one set, and the smallest number of sets you can get away with to do some netting would be 3. So here comes my second set. That's 2 altogether and 3. So I've got 1, 2, 3. If you wanted to make a wider cuff, you would need to add on another 2 sets so that you had 5 in total. And if you were going even wider, you'd add on another 4 sets to have 7 in total, but it will always be an odd number of sets. Now for this very first row, we're going to finish it with another 8. So you've got 4 8s in total. And I'm going to let those come all the way down to my stopper bead. Things are often slightly different when you're starting a technique just to get going. We're ready to turn a corner and bead back towards the stopper bead, and every time we turn a corner we're going to pick up the same sequence of beads, which is 3 11s or 3 of your smaller ones, 1 8, one of your bigger ones, and 2 11s or 2 of your smaller ones. So that is your sequence every time you turn a corner. You're going to ignore the 8 that your thread is exiting from, and you're going to pass the needle through your next 8. And if I move my fingers out the way, you can see you've got your very first edging and your corner turned for your netting. Now we're going to look at this part, and you can see this is made up of 2 11s, 1 8 and 2 11s before it goes into an 8. So we're going to replicate that on this side to complete a diamond shape. So we're going to pick up 2 11s, 1 8 and 2 11s. Ignore the next 8 in the sequence and pass your needle through the 8 that is at the base of your work. So I'm coming through that one there. As we always say with bead weaving, there's so little to hold on to in the beginning, so it's really tricky to keep my fingers out the way, but hopefully you can see how that has started already. Right, we're at the base and we need to turn the corner and bead back away from ourselves. Every time we turn a corner, we're going to pick up 3 11s, or 3 of your smaller beads, 1 of your bigger ones, an 8, and 2 of your smaller ones, 2 more 11s. And you ignore the 8 that your thread is exiting from, and you pass the needle through the next 8 from the row before. And I now have my first bottom edge here to my netting. So now we need to replicate the other side of this, what will become a diamond shape, and that is 2 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, and you ignore the next 8 and pass through the 8 at the top of your beadwork. And we're ready to turn the corner and bead back towards ourselves again. So you're going to pick up your 3 smaller ones, 1 bigger one, and 2 of your smaller ones. Remember to ignore that 8 where your thread is exiting from and pass through the very next 8 from the previous row. And you've got another top edge there. So now we're just doing the diamond shape, which is picking up 2 11s, 1 8 and 2 11s. Ignore the next 8 and come through the 8 at the base of your beadwork. This actually starts to bead up quite quickly once you know what you're doing. So we're turning a corner again, and you're picking up 3 11s, 1 8, 2 11s. Ignore the one where your thread is exiting and go through the very next 8. And now it's a simple diamond, or the other side of the diamond. So it's 2 of your smaller ones, 1 of your bigger ones, and 2 more of your smaller ones. Ignore the next 8 and go through the 8 at the top of your beadwork. So let's see if we can do that a bit quicker now. So we're turning a corner with 3, 1 and 2, turning round and beading through the next 8. It's just the diamond shape now, so it's 2 11s, 1 8 and 2 11s, and we're coming through the 8 at the base of our beadwork. Turning another corner, we're picking up 3 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, and we're beading away from ourselves again. And it's a diamond shape now, so it's just the 2. Obviously, if your cuff is wider, you're going to have more segments where you've got to replicate this diamond shape with the 2, 1 and 2. But this is a narrow cuff. Through the 8 at the top. And we're going to pick up 3 to turn our corner, 3 11s, 1 8, 2 11s. So it's the same sequence of beads each time you turn the corner. It's very repetitive. It's just that first row that needs a little bit of tweaking to get you started. 2 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, and through the 8 at the base. And I'm just going to turn the corner once more. So it's 3, 1, 2. And then it's the diamond shape, so it's 2, 1, 2. Now you would continue doing that for the full length that is required. I'm going to pop this down now because perhaps you can see the netting and those diamonds more effectively now. So I've got one diamond in here, and then the next one is slightly above it and to the right, and then below it to the right. So it's up and down, a bit like a zigzag. So we added 3 sets to begin with, and we've got 1, 2 diamonds per row. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You would continue beading the full length. This is wonderful for a cuff bracelet or even a choker if you've got a slim amount of beading, or for the collar that I showed you earlier on that necklace right at the beginning. Bead along, but remember to allow for the width of your clasp that you're using. If you're using a big toggle clasp on this, that's going to add nearly an inch to your beadwork, so you would stop your netting an inch short. So I hope that's made a lot of sense for you. In the next tutorial, which I will pop a link to on this in the comments of this one, I'm going to show you how to embellish those little diamond shapes to make something super sparkly. Bye!